Friday, August 6th, about 5 days into free agency, watching Twitter, watching everybody go crazy, man. All right, I got some takes. Nothing too crazy. I'm going to start off with my Warriors. It was funny to look at Warriors Twitter the first 24, 48 hours, right? It's kind of like FOMO, fear of missing out, right? It didn't matter what names were going off the board or who was still there or what it was. It was just like, we're not signing anybody. This is awful. Who exactly were the Warriors supposed to sign? Okay, they wanted Nicholas Batum. Look, ultimately, he's a WAP, right? Like, I'm not playing him down the stretch in big games. Patty Mills would have been nice. I can't front, right? But other than that, I don't know. What were y'all expecting? You knew the cap. You knew the tax numbers. People reiterate that every day. But the Warriors ultimately decided on some kind of conservative Warrior-like players, and one, Otto Porter, who obviously his body has failed him, right? He was a top 10 pick in Washington. He ended up getting a big bag, Chicago, Sacramento. But obviously, at the minimum, it's worth the risk, right? You can't really complain. I'll say this, in the one interview that I saw him do, I think it was for NBC, as a Warrior, he didn't look in shape. He looked kind of bloated in the face because, when he's in shape, he kind of looks like a beaver, an Otto Porter. Doesn't even sound like I'm going to leave it alone. Look, I don't expect much out of him. Some of it is luck, right, as far as like injury, but some of it's playing style. And I don't think he puts in the work. Again, he doesn't look in shape. But I think what he will probably be is the guy that us, the fans, get annoyed at for taking the youngsters' minutes, right? It'll be like, oh my God, Kurz, we'll be up 20 and Porter will be in there instead of Kuminga, right? Until inevitably he goes down. So, I can't complain at the vet men, but, I'm not jumping for joy for Otto Porter because frankly, I just don't see him staying healthy. Just look at the history. Sorry to be Debbie Downer on that one. Now, Bjelica, I like him. I think he's the better player. I thought he was the better signing. But again, at the vet minimum, we can't complain here. And we've seen all types of shooters come through the Bay Area, finding that off the bench shooter, right? You got the Michael Mulder type currently, who he only really makes them when it doesn't matter, right? Andre Iguodala only really makes them when it does. Bjelica, he's just going to make them. He's an unfazed shooter. He's a leave-it shooter. You go look at his highlights, he leaves that bitch, right? He leaves the gooseneck. And that's usually a sign of a confident guy. You don't usually see chuckers or non-shooters leaving it because that's low-key embarrassing. Every now and then you'll see it. You go to LA Fitness, you'll see it, right? But not in the league. And, I don't think people realize how big Bjelica is, right? Like, despite his lower body looking like he spent his youth in a wheelchair, he can play the small ball five, right? He's very top heavy, but he's a good 6'10", 6'11", and he has that typical feisty Euro style, right? He's a competitor. I really liked his comments on joining the Warriors, talking about it took him less than a second to decide, less than a minute. He's a motivated guy. I think that he's going to help. Again, playing some stretch five, the ability to play some five out, or you move him to the four, you've got young James at the five, and it's just going to spread the floor. So I like that pickup. I do. And then this morning, the news breaks. He's back. Andre Iguodala has returned to Golden State. He's come home. I think it speaks to his intelligence and what he values. When you say intelligence, maybe that's not fair, but it just speaks to what he values, right? Because the reality is he probably has a better chance at another ring if he went to Brooklyn or Los Angeles. Maybe. Don't get salty at me here. I'm just talking about the odds. But this shows what he values, man. Friendships, relationships, location, legacy. So that was a pleasant surprise. I wasn't sure he was. Just given how he left, right? Remember the Memphis deal, the quickly shuffling him out to bring in D'Lo? I'm sure he wasn't pleased about that, right? And then Andre is a shrewd business operator, right? Like, he's a businessman. And so I wasn't quite so sure that it was going to be enough pull to come back. I'm pleased to say this morning, welcome back, Ig. And I think his biggest value is probably not even going to be on the floor. It's going to be as a teacher and as a mentor, right, at this stage in his career. And in particular to Kuminga, Poole, and Wiseman. all the little tricks, the angles, the reads, how he's decoding what he's seeing. And at this stage in his career, again, at the twilight, he's probably going to let it all flow. I think when players, and I'm generally speaking here, right? But when a guy's in the middle of his career, when he's kind of playing OG to a younger player and this and that, you don't give him everything. The teacher doesn't tell the apprentice everything because you don't want the apprentice to beat you. Eventually, you may be going against each other, right? And so you saw this kind of with Kobe right at the end where he just emptied the clip. He emptied the bag on the youngsters because it was like, well, fuck it, I'm about to be out of here. I was whack saying that as I said that, but you know what I mean. And so I think Ig's going to share it all, right? And so that's where his value holds, and just by simple osmosis, right? Of those young dudes being around him day to day is going to hold tremendous value. And we talked about the development staff and what they've built here in that turnover this season. And I also think that people may not realize how much of a communicator Andre is and was behind the scenes in the locker room. After Draymond, he was the second voice. As for Eric Paschall, Big Body P, he didn't put in the work, right? So if you haven't heard, he's been traded to Utah for, a protected third-round pick. No, I know, second-round pick. But, he didn't put in the work. I think the beginning of the end, my patrons know that I was on this heavy when it happened. The beginning of the end was when he told the team, hey, I'm going to change my jumper after the season. The first 20 games, he came out the gate and, the team was like, hey, man, you're going to have to change the elevation on that jumper. It's crazy, right? And he was like, no, I'll do it in the offseason. They're like, okay, fine. Bro comes back from summer out of shape with the same jumper. That was the writing on the wall, like, oh, he doesn't really have the work ethic. He kind of is who he is. He was an older rookie anyway. So no bad blood for Big Body P. I think, he's a fun player when he's right. And maybe him being sent over to Utah with his boy Donovan can push him. Being around him every day, doing the same things, maybe he can turn into their next Paul Millsap, because I think we all saw the framework for it to be there, but he had to put in the work. He was far from a finished product, and I think he was acting like he was one. But for the Warriors, look, I like it. I like it because it wasn't about getting anything back. Don't look at it at face value. It was opening up the roster spot. Because if you look at what's happening here in Summer League, is this going to be an opportunity for GP2, Gary Payton II? Maybe Nico, who's had a nice Olympic showing. I think that's a real interesting battle there. If they keep one of those, I don't know. Shout out to Warriors Reddit because they're all over the contracts and it's gotten pretty complicated. I'm not on it anyway, but like the exemptions and the two ways and all the rules. But I think that the Warriors may ultimately have to choose between GP2 or Nico for that backup point guard spot. And on paper, GP2 showed so well the other night in Sacramento. He seems like the logical choice. He's older. He can defend multiple positions. But let's see what Nico looks like in Summer League and in camp, right? Because he changed his body in the offseason real quick. And you saw he looked different in Tokyo. He's leaner, he's faster, he's more confident. And it looks like he's going to take that year 2 step. So don't write Nico off yet, man. And I think it's going to be an interesting decision. Hey, maybe they can keep both. Maybe they can keep both with all these little loopholes in contracts. But with GP, he plays so much bigger than he is. It allows you to kind of play him off the ball. He can hang out in that dunker spot. He's a good cutter. And then obviously he's a menace defensively. But I'm undecided. I'm undecided right now because I want to see what Nico does here in Vegas coming up Monday. I think that that's an interesting little internal competition right now that's kind of under the radar as we all pay attention to this free agent board. As for Kent Bazemore, look, he broke into the league being so I'm not surprised he wanted a new one. I mean, right? No. Jokes aside, man. Jokes aside, I wish Bazemore the best. But seeing how that Laker roster filled out, I'm not so sure he's going to get the opportunity he thinks he is. Because in reality, Steph and Steve let him play through some mistakes. I'll talk Lakers here in a little bit. I'm not sure he's going to be afforded that luxury in LA. Like if LeBron starts looking at him funny, he may not see the light of day. It was reported he took less money to go to Los Angeles. So I think Baze thinks he's smarter than he is. And I'm sure you could accuse me of the same thing. So maybe it's a game, recognized game. But I think Baze thinks he's a little brighter than he is. We'll see how it plays out for him. I will enjoy, him battling against our guys. It'll be fun. I think Kuminga's probably going to put something on his head top. But ultimately for the Dubs, listen, it boils down to Klay and what he looks like, right? I mean, that's if we're talking about contention. And I got to be honest, I saw him grimace in a video of him shooting corner threes, 2 weeks ago. And then I'm looking at that new hideous retro uniform. The colors don't make sense. And my apologies to someone that's already ran out and bought it, but it's not for me. And he looks out of shape. He's the picture where he's holding the boombox. You just look at his arms. And look, I understand the process and timeline of what he's doing. Apparently, he'll be ready like January, so he's got time to get in shape. I understand that. But if you want to do everything possible to get back to what you were doing, you stay lean and you stay in shape. There's ways to do it. He's not that immobile. And so we'll see, man. We'll see. Y'all know he's my favorite player of all time, so I'm not here to slander Klay. I'm just stating what I'm seeing right now. As for the youngsters, I'm covering the entire Summer League on my Patreon. Go get that. I already covered the California Classic. Monday starts the real Vegas League, and it looks like we're going to have a lot to talk about. My initial thoughts on Kuminga. First off, I'm not here for the cum bucket nickname. I know I get my jokes off and all that. I'm not here to do that. Not for our first round pick, Dub Nation. I'm hearing Warrior fans call him cum bucket. Like think about this for a second. He's our first round pick. How many of y'all know Africans? How many of y'all have some friends that are Africans? Try giving an African a nickname like that. And if they know, if it's not lost in translation, what happens? So I'm not here to do that. If he busts out, like 2 years from now, if he's total disappointment, yeah, maybe I'll start throwing it around. I'm not here for it right now. But as far as what he showed in that, that it is Summer League, I understand that. But what I kept hearing from people was the concern about his feel for the game. That's not what I saw. I saw a fearless, aggressive, elite athlete who just needs experience and skill development. His feel looked pretty damn good to me. In fact, that's kind of like all he was going off, right? His motor, his athleticism, and kind of a feel. He already understands angles. You saw that big dunk? That's another thing you hear people say, like, he doesn't have any moves, but he's still getting to the basket. A lot of it's just his physical and mental makeup, right? But he kind of has a feel for angles already. And you saw him trying to make the right pass and play. He just doesn't have the skill yet to make it. And so I'm not worried about the feel. I think he just needs experience. And I think that we're going to see a huge jump quickly under the right development program. He looks like he's barely been coached, and he's still doing it. And again, I said it in the breakdown. We'll cover more. I'm going to leave that for that. And then as far as Moses Moody to God, nah, I'm kidding, man. But he just knows how to play, right? He's kind of sneaky slick. And I think as he gets stronger, we'll see that pull-up game come to fruition. And yeah, man, I mean, what can you say about the debut of those two? And again, keep it in the context, Summer League, but we'll cover it this next week in 10 days here on Patreon. What else with the Warriors? I guess there's this Ben Simmons rumor here that Ben is cut off all communication with the Sixers. He's willing to join the Warriors. I mean, I just don't like how he's handling it. I'm out on Ben Simmons. I'm here to say it. I'm out on Ben Simmons. Now, in a hypothetical world, if it really, they said the Warriors and Sixers are engaged in conversation, I would only want Ben Simmons if we didn't have to give up Wiggins or Draymond. And then that becomes impossible when you look at the salaries, right? And so if I had to choose, let's just say it happened. Again, I'm not for it, but if it just happened, I'd give up Draymond instead of Wiggins simply for fit, right? I mean, you can't have both those bricklayers out there at the same time, but it's not happening. It's not happening. But yeah, it's just ugly. Ben's looking ugly in the light, man, because the way he's handling, he's not even talking to Embiid. Like, what are you doing, bro? You don't have the leverage.